Running a brokerage is hard work, so whether you're focused on building your own sales pipeline, hiring the best agents, leveling up your team's production, or protecting the culture you've built, you're in the right place. Real estate brings the challenges, and we share the solution. Welcome to the show dedicated to broker entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Brokerpreneur Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Brokerpreneur Podcast. I'm Dr. Ben Spears, the Doctor of Flow, the host of Brokerpreneur Podcast. Guys, Matt's not part of the show anymore.
And just like that, I guess I can go.
Yeah, I was just seeing what you would do. Listeners.
My bag was halfway packed.
I'm here as always with the co-host, the big guy, Matt Vine.
The cohort.
What's up, Matt?
Just living the dream. Just living the dream. It's been a while since we've talked to. Been a while since we talked to everybody. I just wanted to throw that out there. We've been again super busy, and we never like being too far ahead on the content, right? Because we like to stay relevant with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna throw an episode out there and try to record a couple more of the next few days. We got some guests coming on and everything. All that's scheduled, ready to go, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're getting back on track. We're always innovating for our clients, which means there's always something being built out. And so, it's just one of those.
This next one's a big one.
Yeah, this next one is a big one. So we're super excited about it. But anyways, guys, Matt, what are we talking about, man?
So we're going to talk about presentations. We're going to discuss it a little bit in this podcast and the next one because there's a lot to talk about. We just wrapped up with a boot camp, and one of the things that we heard from a lot of people that attended the boot camp was that they're recruiting interviews, right? Because there's, it breaks down into a few different pieces. They're recruiting interviews. They were really excited about that part of what we talked about. We got some really good feedback on that. So I figured what we'd do is we'd, just give basically some tips or some hacks. So.
Yeah, I like it. Well, guys, the routine. Unless you're a first-time listener.
Right.
First-time caller.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
You guys know the routine. Wherever you're at, make sure you go and hit that follow button, that subscribe button. We would actually absolutely appreciate that. And, go check all the cool things that we have over at brokerpreneurpodcast.com. And we've always got some sort of free download or something like that you guys can get your hands on. So take a look at that. And you can also listen or watch all of our past episodes there as well if you just kind of want to see them in one single place. But beyond that, man, let's get right into the content.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about two of four things today, and so what we're going to talk about is how do you actually present the information that you're going to present in the meeting, right?
Okay.
And so there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? So you can have, you can break out your iPad. You can just sit there and have a coffee shop style conversation. You can have, a binder that you lay out or whatever, right? So you can have a bunch of different ways to do it. Here's what I'd suggest: make sure that it matches big picture who you are. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So if you've got, and so whenever we talk about the interview too, let's keep this in mind. Some interviews, are on Zoom to begin with, or some interviews are on phone call, or some interviews, for lack of a better way of putting it, are ad hoc because you bump into somebody at an open house that you're walking through, or that you're hosting as a broker or whatever. Somebody walks in and they start talking to you a little bit about, who it is, what you do, and all that kind of stuff. Yep. You got to be able to kind of present who it is and what you are and what you do, right? You need to have a cool way of it. You need to have a cool way of doing that.
Yeah, and represent.
That's right. Represent. That's exactly correct.
Yeah, no, I like it. So, you talked about, 2 to 4 things. Let's just dive into that first one. What is it?
Yeah. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're presenting in a way that matches the person that you're talking to.
So the audience.
The audience, absolutely. The person being interviewed, which you're both being interviewed, but right. So how do you get there, right? So you got to ask. Yeah. So whenever you're, as you're doing your lead up to the appointment process and you're getting ready to go into and you're getting ready for that interview, so there should be some automation in place to make sure things stay on track, to make sure if they need to reschedule the appointment, they know how, and all that kind of stuff. All that has to be comfortable. If those things aren't comfortable, then they're just going to no-show. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So during that process, so that's part of the time when you might be able to ask some of that question about the presentation, right?
Okay.
And then the other thing that happens is during that process, you're going to kind of find out whether the person is in tune with how you're presenting that. Because if you've got automation, let's say you're using Calendly and you're using Calendly workflows or something like that, or you're using a CRM and there's CRM workflows and there's a couple of links in there and you can track who's opening what email and all that kind of stuff. And the person You set the appointment with them, and they're going to show up for the interview, and you send some follow-up out to them, and they don't open anything.
Right.
They don't click on anything. Right.
Yeah,
the
that's a
email's just
telltale.
sitting there, and it's crickets. But then they show up to the appointment, and you have a great appointment.
Yep.
So whenever they do that, not that you're just going to automatically assume that they don't love tech. Maybe they're busy or whatever. But you're going to ask. You're going to say, "Hey, I sent a little bit of information over to you and everything. I wanted to see if you had a chance to look through it." At that point, the person's going to say, "Oh, well, yes or no," or whatever the answer is. That's going to allow you to better understand what kind of conversation to have with them actually in that interview.
Yeah.
Because of how they responded to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know so many people. Like I say, every listener here knows so many people that it's like, gosh, when I send that person an email, like I better text them, let them know I sent it.
Right.
Or I send that person a text, and it's like, man, I never get it. But when I call, they answer every single time.
Right.
Right. There's just there are a lot of little cues throughout the entire communication process because you talk all the time, right? The interview starts way before the interview.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And
they better.
Yeah, exactly. Better. That's
it
right.
doesn't have to, but it damn sure better.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are a lot of things that you can pick up, these little subtle cues, and you're really good at that, right? You're really good at, even little things of like talking to people and kind of, adapting a conversation, right in the thick of things, knowing, okay, this is how this person, likes to be talked to, or, you're like personality expert, obviously.
Right.
But along with that, those different ways, forms of communication, those different platforms are just as important as that personality, and say a lot about it.
Right. So I'm gonna give you something that to think about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just me. It might not be for anybody else. This maybe just nobody else in the world looks at it this way.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't. Right.
It's just you.
So I don't look at an iPad the same way I look at a laptop.
Oh yeah.
And so if somebody breaks out an iPad, I kind of look at it a little bit differently than if somebody breaks out a laptop.
Yeah.
Or if somebody breaks out a binder, right?
Yeah.
I kind of, there's one I'm more comfortable with than the other, right?
Yeah.
In case you guys don't know, I'm an Android guy, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Ben is absolutely an iPad, iPod,
Apple.
iPhone, computer piece, not PC kind of guy, right? So if I see that iPad whenever somebody's presenting something to me, it's not like I'm not going to listen to it or whatever, but there's automatically between the two of us, there's automatically, I'm not going to say a breakdown, but there's not as good of rapport as there could be in that situation.
Yeah, we might actually be friends.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if I had an Android phone.
Right, that's right. There's a chance, Ben. There's a chance. So that's only because that's not what I learned. Yeah. And because it's not what I learned, I'm not as comfortable with it.
Right.
And so if I feel that way about an Apple, iPad versus, a Lenovo Flipbook, right?
Yep.
If I feel that much, so other people are going to feel that way maybe about tech or maybe about email or maybe about their phone or about the, however the presentation folder that you use, or do you break out a brochure, however it is that you do it. So what I would suggest is having the core material in more than one format.
Yeah.
Don't just have it in one format. Do not assume that one size fits all. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can have a beautifully presented, perfect bind, magazine type of whatever to be able to sit down and show somebody. And if somebody else is just that digital mindset,
yeah,
you're going to break that out. And they might not think, oh my gosh, I don't like that because that doesn't really match with how I think and what my values are. They might not think that. Consciously,
something's going to be off though.
Something's going to be off, and then you have to overcome that.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I've got a couple of different ways that we can look at this. What would be the most comfortable way for you? If I'm a recruit and I hear that, I'm like, okay, they want me to absorb this information, and they've thought this through. They're prepared.
Yeah.
So having something, that's number one. How are you going to present, and ask ahead of time how you're going to present that information.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. How do you ask? Hey, Dr. Ben here. I hope you're enjoying this episode. If sometimes you feel overloaded or alone when it comes to building your brokerage, I want you to know that we are here for you. There's so much support available to agents, but hardly any dedicated to brokers. I want to personally invite you to schedule a complimentary strategy call where Matt will help you build a 3-step profitability plan that will immediately produce results. This is not a sales pitch. There's no obligation. Simply click the link in the description below. Now let's get back to the show. I'm going to just ask.
Just ask. You can, once they get to the interview, you can ask.
Okay.
But there's also some other ways that you can do it. You can do it ahead of time, right?
Okay.
So you can call and say, "Hey, Ben, I was just calling, just reminding you about our appointment tomorrow. Just wanted to call and check in, make sure we're still on track for that and everything. And we're gonna sit in my office. We're gonna take a tour of my office really quick, and I've got some information to hand out to you. I know some people would rather just get the information digitally, and other people would like to have it tangibly in their hands. Which one of those works best for you?" And at that point, you're just asking the question and seeing how they want that information to be presented to them.
Okay, gotcha. So you found that out,
right?
Right. Now what?
Yeah. So now what you're going to present to them, we believe that you should have pillars of your conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So once you figure out what your pillars of your conversation are, there's going to be some core things that you're always going to be able to discuss.
Yep.
Those core things are established not by what you offer, but by what questions you ask and the answers you get.
Okay.
Okay. So that means
I've never heard you say it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that means that whenever they sit down in the interview, you're going to ask some questions, and the questions that you ask them are going to help you understand how to explain your pillars to them.
Yep, makes perfect sense.
Okay.
But for those of you who doesn't make perfect sense, give us one example.
Yeah. So whenever I sit down with somebody, I'm going to ask them. I'm going to say, "Hey, look, there's some fundamentals in the real estate business. I don't want to waste your time and my time. I'd really like to make the most of this conversation. Tell me what the biggest thing that you'd like to take away from us sitting here. What is it that I can help you out with? What is it that I could help you do that would move your business forward?"
Yeah, training.
Yeah, right. They're going to say training, or they're going to say, "I need more leads," or "I need whatever," and then you can grab onto that conversation.
Yeah, and then move it into your pillar.
Right, and then you say, "Well, here's the things that all real estate breaks down to. Which one of these would you like to start talking about first?"
Yeah, which one's most important to you?
Right.
Yeah, and then you're taking notes through that entire process, right?
Have to.
Yeah. Gotcha. I like that, right? So I'm gonna expand on that, and I know that everybody's heard this, but I like this point that you always make, because I think it is very important. It's very easy for all of us to grab a sheet of paper and a pen and start writing some things down, but it's very important, like you always say, to ask permission, essentially, if you take notes.
Right.
And tell us why that is, just for a second.
Yeah, you're gaining acknowledgement. You want to make sure that they know that what they're about to say is important, and it puts them in a position of democratized authority, for lack of a better way of putting it. I'm going to give you part of the authority in this situation. I'm going to have part of the authority in this situation.
Yep.
I'm asking you, is it okay for me to do something that I know is important?
Yeah.
So we're splitting that authority in that situation.
Yeah,
And that's what you're doing. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So, we've got, how we want to communicate to them. We've talked, about, having something prepared, obviously, before then. We dove straight into, okay, now they're actually in the interview and you're presenting. You need to have, kind of, we call them 4 pillars, it can be categories, whatever you guys want to call them.
Right.
What's the next step from a presenting standpoint?
Yeah, so there are some things that are fundamental to business that you need to be ready to very concisely explain to them in the interview. Okay, and so that means that you need to have some fundamental support information.
Yep.
Every interview, whether you get to let's say that there's 20 things. Okay. 20 things is a lot. You're not going to probably get to 20 things in a conversation. I sure hope not.
Yeah.
So
not with me.
Yeah. So 20 things are a lot. But what might happen is you might be able to have 10 or 15 of those things that are just solid fundamentals that whenever they leave, you're going to be able to hand that to them. You're going to be able to give that to them. You're going to make sure that you have that chance. That's right. That you have that chance to discuss that with it, that it's going to be prepped, for lack of a better way of putting it. Okay.
Yep.
So once you have that in place, once you have that set up the way that's supposed to be set up, there's not pressure on you to regurgitate all that on everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And so if there's 15 things that you know that your company just crushes it at, let's say that there's 30, you've got 15 outlined on this, they say that something's important to them, you explain a couple of those things to them, and then you have those 15 things that you're going to be able to share with them visually and let them go with them so they understand more about you without you having to dig into every little thing that you do, you're going to shut up.
Oh, yes.
You're as the interviewer, you're going to talk less.
Yeah, and it's going to provide you a lot of relief too.
Absolutely. You're going to be more relaxed.
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do on an interview is regurgitate.
Right.
In any
turns
form
out.
or fashion.
Right. Yeah. Turns out.
So, I know you said, there's three or four, right? And I'm here in the audience just with you guys, right? I'm here in the audience too. So, is there another one? Is that the last one? Well, what are we looking at?
Having those fundamentals that are ready to go so it takes the pressure off of you is the last one we're going to discuss today.
Okay.
But in another podcast, we are going to dig into how to be compelling with your message and how to get them to engage. We're going to talk about that because you have to do that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about, what kind of presence you have to have from an online standpoint and how you demonstrate that in an interview.
Yeah, I love that. And guys, the reason that we're kind of putting a little, a lot of stress over these next few episodes on the interview is because, just like Matt said, we did just finish our boot camp that we did, and we got a lot of questions. As many times as we thought, okay, hey, we're probably going to get some questions about how do I get more appointments and leads and all this kind of stuff. There was so much engagement when we went over the interview that we just knew.
And KPIs was another big part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That'll be another series.
Right.
But yeah, we had so many questions about it that, man, we just want to share what we can and hope that it helps the listeners out there. So
yeah, without being overwhelming.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, Matt, I'm gonna put a little bow on this as long as you're okay with it, and if you're not, I'm still gonna do it.
Let's do it.
Guys, I've done this in a while, so I'm probably going to mess it up. But the next podcast, I won't mess it up. Guys, if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, and any of those platforms, just make sure you hit that follow button. If you're watching this on YouTube, what's up?
What's up?
Hit that red subscribe button, that bell right beside of it. Get notified every time we drop a new episode. There's no better time than the present than to go to brokerpreneurpodcast.com. Check out all the cool things that we have. Do not forget, this is super important, and it's in the description, and the link's in the description below, guys. Brokerpreneur Not So Secret Society is every single Friday.
Had another good one today.
Yeah, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we had a lot of cool, obviously, all the brokers that show up are cool. Right. We had a lot of cool brokers who were in there, and we were talking about things. Matt and I always bring a topic, of course, in case, we get in there and people are like, I'm too scared to talk.
Right.
Right, but we don't really get that. We don't really get that very often, which is really cool.
Every now and again, we got somebody that pops in with a phone number and won't
and
they ask one question.
98.
and they pop in, ask a question, and disappear like a ninja in the 80s.
Yep, exactly, American Ninja. And so, we're cool with that, guys. That's what it's all about, right? Hop in there. We're there from 12 to 1 every single Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Just come hang out with us. It'll be a lot of fun. You'll learn a lot, I promise. And if you have any questions, you'll get them answered. If you don't have any questions, other people will, and you'll learn from those.
Absolutely. We had today a lot of the stuff that was shared. There was a couple of people saying, well, this is how I do this. And other people were going, tell me more about that, because that's incredible. So that's what we want. We want that collaboration.
100%. Well, Matt.
Yep.
We do that, the podcast, and drink water and everything.
Things, right?
For one reason alone. Tell them why that is, man.
Man, we just want to be part of your win.